And in today's overconnected, overcommunicated world, it's easy to be forgotten. And so most of the energy it takes to build a connection is on connecting, like a car or a rocket. Most of the fuel is spent getting up to speed, getting up to orbit, but maintaining it is not as hard. But you have to have processes and systems to do that. And the best way to stay top of mind with your prospects, your customers, and ideally their influencers as well, is to give your knowledge away. Become their trusted advisor. Stop selling. Nobody wants to be sold. People don't buy great products. They buy better versions of themselves.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, I'm really excited because I have somebody today who has given me the opportunity to reminisce as well as challenge my look forward. And I have Jon Ferrara with me today. Jon, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. I'm super excited to be here with you and your audience. I think that through conversations like these, we might impart a little bit of knowledge that might inspire and educate people about how they might achieve their dreams in life. And I think that's why we're on this planet, is to connect with others and find ways to add value. Because in the end, that's all you leave is the vibrations and the moments you've been connected and present with other human beings.
I love that. What's your legacy, right? We're living it every day. Okay, so
Amen.
Before we get into a little bit about your background, if you could, please answer the question, what does a B2B digital marketer need to be thinking about today?
Top of mind. If you're not top of mind, you're out of sight. Mae West said it. Out of sight is out of mind is out of money, honey. And in today's overconnected, overcommunicated world, it's easy to be forgotten. And so most of the energy it takes to build a connection is on connecting, like a car or a rocket. Most of the fuel is spent getting up to speed, getting up to orbit, but maintaining it is not as hard. But you have to have processes and systems to do that. And the best way to stay top of mind with your prospects, your customers, and ideally their influencers as well, is to give your knowledge away. Become their trusted advisor. Stop selling. Nobody wants to be sold. People don't buy great products. They buy better versions of themselves.
When you say that, we're going to get into this, so I'm going to come back to that. So if you could, though, give listeners a little bit of background about you and how and what you're bringing to the table and what you're going to share with us today in order to validate and create even more depth to what we've just talked about so far.
So my background is I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a software entrepreneur. I've been building relationship management systems before Outlook or Salesforce existed, before the term CRM, market automation, or contact management existed. And it was with a company called Goldmine that I co-founded. And I co-founded Goldmine because I was a business person like you, out there trying to build connections at scale. And there was no CRM, there was no contact management. There was basically Rolodexes and daytimers. And I thought there had to be a better way. I couldn't find it. So I built it with Goldmine and scaled that company on $5,000, no bank loans, no venture capital, $100 million plus a year in revenue. Sold it and retired when I was 40. Spent 10 years raising 3 babies. And if you got babies, you know how precious that time is. And it gave me time to swim in the social river. I saw how it's going to change the way that we work, play, buy, and sell. And I started to look for a tool to manage relationships in the new evolving social era. Couldn't find it. And I built Nimble.
Well, now let's clarify. You did find some things because I was reading a little bit about how that progression and that maturation cycles. You found this tool, you found that tool, and you found another tool.
I get into that. I get into the nuances. So I did find things in the Goldmine days, and I did find things in the Nimble days in synthesizing a solution. And I'm happy to go into both because I think it's instrumental in seeing the process of any business person looking at a problem, finding a solution or synthesizing a net new one, because it's always built on the shoulders of giants, right?
And
So
I think,
you want me to do the gold mine one?
I think it's important, to talk about, like Salesforce automation, and what you did, with Goldmine. There was another at the time for me. I was a former Goldmine user, and there was another product for me at the time that I was looking at, which was different, which is called Act. But both of those are still around. There's been a plethora. I mean, there's literally thousands of other CRM types of solutions out there. And that's kind of what makes it so difficult for people is they're like, okay, well, I need, something to be able to track this. I need, to be able to, stay connected. Nobody's listening to anybody. There's this, red ocean and everybody's trying to do the same thing. I mean, you have all of these things that are fighting against us. And I think that's what you kind of found. If you could maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
You bet. So when I was working as a salesperson in the late 80s, this is back in the DOS era, disk operating system. I got leads, which are basically piece of paper with phone numbers of IT people. And I cold call them. I make notes on the paper. I put my appointments in my day timer. I did my forecast in a spreadsheet, and I communicate with my team with email and Post-it notes. And I said, there's got to be a better way. I looked around and I found a program called Snap, which was a pipeline management tool, a program called SaleMaker, which was a call queuing system where I could pound the phone, much like Telemagic was back in those days, and a plugin to Symphony called Act, which was a tool that enabled you to manage contacts in a Symphony spreadsheet that you could do notes and tasks on that contact. But my vision was I wanted a platform that integrated email, contact and calendar, and sales and market automation, because there were people in my Dallas district office. There's 15 other district offices, plus there was corporate, and we all did the journey with the customer. So we needed a team relationship manager so that no matter who looked at that contact, they could see what's pending, who's going to do it, what's been done, who's done it, and to be able to do the basics of the follow-up and follow-through, notes and tasks that enabled them to get the relationship to a point to manage a pipeline deal. And ultimately, I wanted some automated nurturing because I, as a sales rep, forget to do things. And I wanted to be able to have some automation. So if I put a contact in there, that I would be able to do some basic drip to move that contact along. And if the contact state changed, it could then push it into a different type of cycle. And that is what caused me to build Goldmine. So yes, there were other tools, but they were limited. Like there was WordPerfect Office, which would network schedule and email, but it didn't tie back to contacts. There was Act, which did contact management for individuals, but it wasn't a team. And there was a pipeline tool that was Snap, but it didn't tie back to contacts. So I synthesized all that into a net new solution. And what made Goldmine and Act different than today's CRMs is that they were based on contact management because there was no Outlook. So Goldmine and Act was the contact platform that you use for contact, email, and calendar. You didn't use Outlook. And what happened was Outlook came out. So then Act and Goldmine became more CRM. So rather than just relying on the contact features that sales reps love, we added SFA features, which was the pipeline and the automated nurturing. But then we added the reporting and the command and control privacy stuff that is part of CRM. So CRM stands for customer relationship management, but it really should stand for customer reporting management, because CRMs like Siebel and Salesforce are built for management, not for the customer facing business people. And most sales reps don't live in the CRM. They live in Outlook or Office 365 or G Suite or LinkedIn or wherever they can have conversations with customers. And the biggest cause of failure of CRM is lack of use. The second is bad data. Because the reason they call it Salesforce, you have to force salespeople to use it. Nobody in their right mind would use a CRM. They won't be on to do it. And I think the reason is that you work for the CRM. You have to Google people before you engage with them. Then you go log what you know about them. And then you engage with them in email and social. And then you got to go log what you did. And I think that's backwards. I think your CRM should work for you by building itself, by automatically in building records for you with one click, enriching with people company data, and then work where you work. In your inbox, in social, or on a business website, or even in a business article that you're reading, so that you can prospect smarter and engage intelligently anywhere. And anytime you engage, it's your job to know who that person is or what their business is about. But you typically don't do the Googling, and your CRM doesn't have good data. And that's why we all fail, is we don't do the basics: prepare, engage, follow up, and follow through.
Yeah. And let's be clear. I mean, because what you just ran through right there, I mean, people may say, well, for me, it's like what you even explained with Goldmine, not a whole lot has changed. It's just the different components have changed. So maybe I don't have a fax machine, but now I have a LinkedIn profile. So, I mean, you have all these different things. And also when you start looking at, somebody who is in marketing and or sales, they really have to do a lot of those same types of activities. If I'm a smaller organization, I mean, heck, I have to prospect, I have to stay connected. I have to create content. I have to engage, in order for me to sell as a small business owner. So, so when I look at the complexities of where we are today, like right now, everybody's jumping on Clubhouse, right? And then Twitter, it was quickly responding, and Facebook is quickly responding to the drop-in audio type of thing. So it's like, what am I supposed to do, right? There's so many darn things out there.
It really is simple. I think you just bring it back to the basics. Go back 100 years, and we all lived in a small town. And your brand was built on the promises that you made and the experience that you delivered. And if you can align those two, you could build a gold mine. I know, I did. And so it's not much different today. It's a little more digital. And so if you think about going outside of your business today digitally, people are having conversations. And what you want to be is you want to be part of that conversation, so that when people need your products or services, they not only pick up the phone and call you, but they drag their friends with them. How can you become part of that conversation? I started by saying the biggest struggle that digital marketers or business people have today is staying top of mind. So the best way to do that is to give your knowledge away. And you've forgotten more about your products and services and your profession than your customers will ever know in their lives. And all you got to do is share your knowledge. And if you're not a good writer, just curate knowledge. Go find content that inspires and educates you in the areas of your promise, your products and services, and then share that on a daily basis in the places where your customers are having conversations. And for most people, that's not Clubhouse. Clubhouse is where marketing influencers go to make themselves more visible to other marketing influencers. But the reality is that most people do use LinkedIn. They do use a lot of people do use Twitter, and they do use Facebook and Instagram. So here's the cycle of the journey that I recommend. Let's say that you build an identity on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you curate knowledge and you share that content on a regular basis. So in the morning, you're sharing the content. In the afternoon, you go listen and you connect with people that respond to it. Because if you drop a hook in the river with a worm on it, you don't want to just sit it there so that the fish just nibble it and never catch a fish. When they nibble, you got to pull the hook, which means you need to engage with people, not with the intent to sell them, but the intent to help them grow. And if you do that, repeat and rinse every day, share a little content, listen and engage, you're going to build a pipeline of people around you, which are not just prospects and customers, but ideally they're influencers as well. The reason I was able to build Goldmine on $5,000 without any venture capital was I identified the influencer of my prospect. In those days, it was a person that sold them the network, the Novell reseller, and I got them to use Goldmine, and then they started recommend and resell it. And that's how we were able to scale. If I was selling to a small business today, I'd find out who the trusted advisor is. It might be their accountant. It might be their marketing consultant. It might be their lawyer. It might be a number of people. And so using content to build your brand and grow your network is a key to success. But if you do what I say, you're going to have thousands of contacts, which means you need a contact manager. And the reason why CRMs fail for most businesses is they're really built for lead qualification workflow for enterprise corporations. And so it's really good for companies that have a website and they're doing a lot of massive marketing and driving eyeballs. You can then lead qualify that lead, and then you give it to a rep. But when you give the lead to a rep, they're not going to use the market automation system, nor even the CRM. They basically need a map and a rifle. And that's what a contact manager is. And so even if you have a CRM that does lead automation, marketing, lead qualification, once you give it to that rep, where's he going to go? He's not going to go in the CRM. He's going to go in Outlook, and he's going to go in LinkedIn, and he's going to engage on the phone. And so you need to be prepared. You need a good contact manager. And I think the whole market is swinging back to the after the gold mine days, where we don't want complex CRMs for a bunch of management reporting. We want contact managers that help us engage at scale and turn those connections into measurable business outcomes.
I think you bring up a really interesting point in talking about the getting back to fundamentals piece. And for me, I find I guess there's just maybe a disconnect in some of the components where people will talk about, content marketing, and content creation. And when you start looking at the statistics associated with marketing and sales, so all those budgets that people had that were going to all these trade shows, they just shifted it over, and a lot of it went to creating content. So now you have, a level of noise that's out there that is, 10x greater than it was in 2019 in regards to all this content. So, how do I even sort through and get through all of that in order to be able to start making and nurturing those connections when there's just so much noise? And I've had executives tell me that they hardly use LinkedIn at all. And you don't see them on Twitter. So it's like, hey, if this is part of my target, they at least have a profile. How do I actually get past
Well, I think you need to use a combination of new and old school. So the new is you can't afford not to be there, because people are using digital to have conversations and to select business partners. And so you can't afford not to do a basic identity in the places where your prospects, customers, and the influencers have conversations. Content sharing and engagement, all good. But you know who you should be connecting to, and you don't have to wait for them to see your content and connect to you. You could reach out to them and connect to them. But if you have an identity that you built, because everybody's going to Google you before they engage with you, at least they could see that you're a respected person in your community that they might consider to work with. And so the old school is prospecting somebody from a business article in your local newspaper and reaching out to and doing your homework to understand that person and their business, and then reaching out with a one-to-one communication that clearly states your desire to help them grow and your knowledge of where they're at and a suggestion of how you might add value to where they might go. And that's really business basics. But I think that a lot of people just don't do that as effectively as they should because they don't prepare. In the old days, I taught people to go in somebody's office and look at their walls, look at the books they read, the degree of the school they went to, the knickknacks they collect. All that gives you clues into that person. And it's no different today, but you could do it digitally. And so rather than Googling somebody, you can Nimble them and then have the background data that you need in order to reach out and the tools to reach out, which means templated emails with tracking pixels so you know when people open it. It's some of the basic stuff, but that doesn't mean you want to put somebody on a 20 track automated drip that sends somebody a bunch of spam emails that basically make them feel like you don't really care enough to personalize your outreach to you. Because the more digital we get, the more human we need to be. And I think you need to be prepared. You need to outreach in a one-to-one way, and you need to be clear about how you might add value to that person.
So I would dare to say a lot of the things that you're talking about that are necessary, especially for those that are in smaller organizations and they're trying to, be able to make connections and sell their products and services to other businesses, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants. A lot of them will just come straight out and say, "I hate selling," and they've got this.
And you know what? Customers hate to be sold to. Like I said, nobody buys great products. They buy a better version of themselves. And most people make the mistake of talking about how great they are or their products and services are. Stop talking about your products and services. Start talking about how you can help other people become better, smarter, faster. Sell somebody a better version of themselves. And then you become a trusted advisor. And I think that sales has become a four-letter word and service is the new sales. And so I agree with them. Nobody likes to sell and nobody likes to be sold to. So stop selling.
Well, and I think, but there's a kind of balance here. And I think this is where most people struggle is they think of the whole outreach and connection piece as a sales function, because I'm trying to get somebody in my, top of my funnel, whatever it is and how you've defined it. And so therefore they don't even act on it. And so they'll share and they'll create their content and they'll give away what they know, but it isn't channeled in a way by which it's, at their most ideal, a client or prospect. They're just spraying and praying. So how does Nimble help me stop from spraying and praying?
Because what you're doing by sharing content is that's a spray, right? But the people are going to respond to your content about, like, my content might be how somebody might be better, smarter, faster at social sales and marketing or entrepreneurship. And so people then will bite on that content. And because Nimble can enrich that person with the people and company data that I need, I can then immediately see if this person is qualified for my further attention and investment. And that's the difference, right? Like, you just don't want to be invested in every single person that raises their hand or connects or whatever. There's a certain type of prospect persona that best fits your products and services. You know who they are, and you know it when you see them. But the problem is, if you just have an email or a social handle or a name, in many cases, it's hard to turn that into a complete profile. And that's what Nimble does. Nimble will automatically enrich that contact and build a record with one click. And then once you see that person, you can make the determination. Do I want to invest in building a relationship with this person? And then we give you the tools to organize that and make it fun and easy. And that's the struggle I think that we all have is identifying people that matter and organizing the follow-up and follow-through so that we can manage it effectively. And in the old days, we did that with 6x9 index cards, where we would make notes on a call and put a recall date and then basically cycle through those calls. And Nimble is just an evolution of some of those basic techniques that help you to stay organized with the assets that matter most, the people that are in your gold mine of contacts.
Well, okay, so that was very, very helpful, because I think a lot of people do struggle, with the whole, and I don't want to demean it in any way to say, hey, this is targeting, right? But I mean, you do have to be you think about being more efficient and more effective with who you're choosing to go and engage with. I mean, we all only have so much time, and we have to be able to leverage that in the best way possible. And I think what you're talking about in this new digital world, is really going to be the difference between, I would probably say, the 2% and everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, why would you engage with anybody but a qualified lead? Right. And that's what the enterprise companies do, is they drive eyeballs with whatever means they can. A lot of them is advertising still. And then they drive those eyeballs into their websites. They convert that into a market automation system where they nurture it until it's lead qualified. And so lead qualified might be, they came to the website and they filled out a form and they consumed a PDF. Then they came back and signed up for a webinar and they consumed the webinar. Then they came back and they signed up for a trial. And so they've given you their email, they've given you the location, and maybe they give you their role and persona. But if they don't give you all that, you could use sales intelligence tools like Nimble to enrich that email to give you all the detail on them and their company. And at that point, you should be able to determine if they're qualified for your investment. And you should be investing in qualified leads, but not just leads of prospects and customers, but their influencers as well. Do not forget about the value and power of influence, because it's more powerful when other people talk about you than when you talk about you. And getting a trusted introduction is priceless.
So, Jon, I would dare to say that there was talking about that gap between you selling gold mine and having to raise babies, and then making this determination of coming back and developing Nimble. There had to be some things that you were saying to yourself, okay, I'm not going to do this I'm going to choose this particular path instead. Is there some things that come to mind when I say that?
Well, with Goldmine, I didn't take any investors, and it had its own journey and its own rewards. I think that taking money can mask issues that a lean startup would see that would force it to make changes. And so I think there's some values to not taking money, and there's some values to taking money. At Goldmine, I had a co-founder. And I think if you're going to go out and start a business, it's great to have a partner, because it's hard work starting a business. And it's great to have a partner that's a mirror opposite maybe of your strengths and weaknesses, so that combined your 1 + 1 is 5. And that's what I did at Goldmine. With Nimble, I didn't have a co-founder of that type. And so, yes, there are definitely differences between entrepreneurial journeys and choices that you make.
Well, I also have to think, and I read something about once you sold Goldmine, I think you had a little bit of a health scare, right? I
did. So many times when people leave a job, especially a job where they poured themselves into it, and I poured myself into Goldmine. I sacrificed friends and family for 10 years in order to build what we built. And so a lot of times when people retire, they die 6 months later. It's really sad. So I retired at 40, and I got a head tumor a year later, and I faced death. And I think that when you face a health scare, you go through a lot of processing. And so I had to deal with solving my health journey, but also I did some spiritual work. And I really do believe in the soul and the higher power and the power of all that. And I did some praying, and I came to the conclusion that my purpose on this planet is to grow my soul in the brief period of time that I'm here. And the best way for me to do that is to help other people grow their souls. And I'll give you an analogy. Have you ever been really present with your kids and they reflect your shit back at you, and you kind of go, "Oh my God, that's me"?
Yes, quite often.
And did it kind of scare you? Because, when people reflect your shit back at you, it kind of can go ooh, right? Like when you're driving down the road and somebody does something really stupid and you go, "Should I do that?" And so I think that if you're truly present with other human beings that love you, they'll reflect your shit back at you. And if you're willing to look at your shit in life and work on it, that's how you grow. But ultimately, I think it's bigger than that. I think that we really are on this planet to add value to others, that service is really the key to life success. And I think that if we had that mentality in the business processes that we do, that we didn't reward salespeople on closing the deal with a commission, but the entire team on keeping the customer, on customer success, where our focus is the customer success, not money in the bank and our profits, that the money in the bank and the profits would just pour in. And so I think that my philosophy of life shifted after going through my health scare, and it's really poured itself into what Nimble is. And Nimble is much more than a CRM. It really is a relationship manager that will help you build the relationships that you need to help achieve your dreams, which I hope include helping others achieve theirs. Because as the great Zig Ziglar said, you can achieve anything you want in life as long as you help others achieve what they want in life.
So, Jon, okay, so you had Goldmine, retired at 40, had the health scare, raised some babies, coming back at Nimble, come back, creating Nimble, taking the path that you took because of things that you've learned in the past and things that you've observed for others. Really, I mean, you talked about the philosophy, you talked about your purpose, all of those things, and those are all critically important. But still, there has to be some drive and some goals that you have in place. I mean, what are you targeting? What are you wanting to accomplish from a goal perspective?
Well, at Goldmine, we had tens of millions of people that were powering their businesses and their dreams. And I think that, as I shared before, I believe that if you could help others succeed at scale, then that truly is success in life. And so I really believe that people's connections are critical to their life success. And if I could help tens of millions of people build the connections they need to achieve their dreams, then that's my life success. So we want to build Nimble into serving 50 million plus people around the globe to build the connections they need to achieve their life success. And I think anybody listening to this today should think about their own brand and their network, because that's your net worth. Your personal brand, your professional network is your net worth today. That's how people are going to hire you tomorrow. And that most people don't manage their network. They don't have a personal CRM. Most people's personal CRM is iCloud or Gmail combined with LinkedIn, maybe. And so I think if you listen to this today and you don't have an organized way to manage the most precious asset you have, the connections that you have built around you, then you need to go out and get something like Nimble and start using it today, regardless of if you use a CRM at the office. But if you are a business person with other business persons that you work with, then Nimble is a perfect relationship manager for the team that will help you to do the CRM basics, putting leads in there, converting them into customers, doing pipeline and reports. But the most critical thing that we really do is the contact management. And that's critical to everyone's life success today.
So I'm sitting here and I have all these competing priorities. I have some metrics that have either been placed upon me, or maybe I've even just created them for myself. When I start looking at all of this measurement, you even mentioned some of the the templates and analytics and all of these other things. I mean, how do I need to realistically ground myself? Because going back to what we had talked about, get back to some fundamentals. What are some of the fundamentals that a B2B digital marketer needs to really be looking at?
Well, I think that do what you say and say what you do. It's the basics, right? It's the follow up and follow through. Most people don't do the basics. How many times has somebody said to you, hey, Jim, I'll send this to you, or I'll call you next week, or I'll do that, and they don't do it?
Way too many times.
Yeah, all the time, right? And so I think if you just do the basics, if you prepare before you engage with another human being, you know who they are, you know what their business is about, you know the history and actions that you and the team have had, you're prepared. You go in there and you ask good questions and you shut up and listen. They'll tell you everything you need to know in order to help them grow, even if it means recommending a competitor. And then if you follow up and follow through, you do the basics, you log that note, you schedule that next action, that you will build a pipeline of people that you're doing this with. And it just naturally will flow into money. And so you don't need to look at any metrics. You don't need to do any reports. You just need to do a good job of building your brand, standing out from the crowd, being top of mind, becoming people's trusted advisor, and then engaging with the intent to serve and grow others, and then follow up and follow through and rinse and repeat that process on a daily basis. And you will transform your life by transforming others.
Okay. So now I have to ask, we've talked about all these things and the manager and this, that, and the other, and you're talking about being able to connect and using, content either that you've created or you've curated. So am I to dare to say that when you look at, being able to execute, on all of those connections, that you even have some type of way of, storing and then therefore, promoting certain things? So I have this library of stuff that I'm actually using in order to connect, or do I have to, is that something separate? So
you can do lead scoring in Nimble, but you have to sort of determine what your scores are based off of.
Well, I'm not just talking about lead scoring. I'm talking about, what I'm actually outreaching and connecting and engaging with, to show that I want them to help them. You talked about, sharing things that you find, right?
Yes.
You talked about, you mentioned it in regards to, you probably forgot more, about your business and what you do than anybody could ever know who's not, there with you. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to, help people to be successful. So you say, give away your knowledge. Well, how do I keep track of all of those things to be able to make sure that I'm giving it to people to use it as part of this nurturing process to help others?
Sure. So I think we need to boil it down to something really simple that people can understand, because I think it can be complex when you start thinking about the process of content curation, sharing, and engagement. So I think that if you're in business doing something, you're kind of passionate about it. You kind of dig it, right? You do it because you dig it. And so you're probably reading on a regular basis about new stuff that's in and around your products and services that you do. And when you're reading stuff in the morning with your coffee, just share it, right? So you that's called curation. So the things that vibrate with you, that inspire and educate you around your areas of products and services, share that, but not just the business aspects, but the human aspects as well. So share some personal stuff of yourself. Because if I share with you that I dig vinyl, or I dig backpacking, or I dig astronomy or history or entrepreneurship or whatever you dig, right? You share that as well, because that enables people to see you and connect with you, to build that deeper relationship. So when you share content, make sure you hashtag and attribute accordingly. Hashtag means pound wine, pound backpacking, pound sales, pound marketing, whatever the category is, so people can see it. And then attribute the person's name, because the person that actually created that content, the influencer, will eventually become your friend. And then you will be in that peer of influencers, and that sort of raises your status, right? And so most people aren't good at writing. I'm a math computer science major. I do not like to write, but I do recognize content that's in my areas of products and services that inspire and educate me. And I know my audience would appreciate that, not just my audience of prospects and customers, but their influencers as well. So I want to build a sustainable garden of these people around me that I can then use to engage with, which helps me become top of mind with them, so that when they do need my products and services, they do pick up the phone and call me, and they do drag their friends with them.
Jon, I'll tell you, whole wealth of information and realization that you shared with us today. But how does the B2B DM gang get in touch with you?
So the easiest way to get in touch with me is Google me, Jon space Ferrara. And I invite you to Google yourself, because people are going to Google you. And if you don't show up on the top of the page, there's a problem. And here's an easy tip for you to show up. Build a Wikipedia page about yourself. Make sure you cite external notations, put in a good avatar, etc. And when people Google you, you're going to show up on the first page, and you can control what they see. But reach out to me on whatever channel is most comfortable for you. And if you want, just email me. It's simple, jon@nimble.com. But what I do want to invite you to do is go try Nimble today, because I believe that you should be investing in your brand and your network on a daily basis. Even if you have a CRM at the office, Nimble will work with your CRM. You could use it to build your golden Rolodex, and then take that with you in the future where you go. And if you're a small business, an individual, a team of 2 to 25, 2 to 5, 2 to 10, whatever it is, and you're looking for a tool to help your team work more effectively together, think about Nimble as that tool, because most CRMs aren't really built for engagement. They're built for reporting. And you need a tool that's built for contacts, because people buy from people they like, and they buy from people they like, know, and trust. And you need to build connections in order to have conversations that ideally turn into a measurable, mutually beneficial business outcome. And if you sign up for Nimble today at nimble.com and you like what you see, I'm going to give you 40% off. Use the code Jon40, Jon40, when you become a subscriber, and you get 40% off your first 3 months.
Jon Ferrara, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we all wish you the very best.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.